I'm honored to have you swing by my garden this evening. Evening times in the garden is one of my very favorite things ever, and you guys have been asking to see what my vegetable backyard garden looks like this year, and so I want to take you along, kind of show you around. This year was my first year of more of an intensive gardening type of planting, and so I'm excited to share that with you, some wins, some losses, and things that I've learned along the way. So starting off with here, we have this arch. This one I think we ordered from Home Depot a couple years ago, and I actually need to finish tying up these roses. They actually just finished their first flush of the season. Beautiful roses. These are David Austin roses, and I am blanking on their name, so I'll put that on the screen for you later, but we have one on either side. So these have just been such a beautiful kind of centerpiece and welcome into the garden. But speaking of that, welcome into the garden. Let's get started. You'll see we're just starting to get some empty spaces. That's because I've been pulling things already. It's so hard to believe it's already that time, but things like lettuces, most of my lettuces we're starting to go into head, and so I went ahead and pulled those. It's actually on my list to pop in some more seeds and just keep it going. We do live in a gardening zone where we can also do some things for fall gardening, and so I'm trying to just kind of keep that going this year as long as I can. But we have a lot of cabbages in this garden. I actually planted just a lot of cabbages overall. I love homemade sauerkraut. Can you guys hear the birds? They just come out here and sing their little hearts out, and it's the most beautiful thing. Sauerkraut is the main drive here for all of the cabbage, and I did some different colors. I also love doing like sauteed cabbage with some ground beef. It's like every time I start talking, this bird starts chirping. Okay, and then we have kale. We've been loving a lot of kale chips. This is great, also loaded with different nutrients. Obviously, dark leafy greens are known for that. And then I popped in some flowers. So these are some petunias. I put them in a couple different places. I wanted them to kind of trail down, which they're just starting to do. It'll be interesting to see what they look like in another month or two. And they also are supposed to be really good with like deterring pests and different insects, which I actually did not know about petunias. And so that has been a really fun addition. In these cages, I planted 2 pepper plants each. They're just starting to bear fruit. We've got some little peppers growing, which is really exciting. Normally, until the end of the season, these will be about this high. Some of them actually reach over the top of the cages, so they're off to a good start, but definitely not at their mature height yet. We have some more cabbage. This is a purple cabbage, more kale. I felt like I was learning a lot this year with the whole intensive gardening, but the idea is to plant the tallest thing in the middle, next tallest, next, and then a smaller thing on the side. Cabbages, I found it later, I think should have gone in the middle, not because they get tall, but because they get so massively wide. But you live and you learn. Things seem to be doing okay for the most part. I think they did kind of squelch out a couple of maybe lettuces underneath their massive leaves, but for the most part, we didn't have any trouble. And then next to these cabbages, we have another petunia. I love these. This one is spreading out a little bit more and seems to just really like its a little spot, brings me so much joy. Here I have a celery plant. We have some more kale, we have some chives, and you'll just see a ton of herbs. Kind of what I was trying to fill in my borders with. I've been loving freeze drying them and using them a ton in different dishes. So then moving along to this side, we just have basically a lot of cabbages left here. The lettuces, like I said, are done, and so cabbages are just going to town. One of these days I think I'll come through and pick them. You can see a little bit of the outer leaves are getting some holes, a little bit eaten, but inside here we just have this massive, like basketball sized cabbage, and I want to get them pulled before they get like worms or bugs in them, which can sometimes be a problem later on. Here we have some Italian parsley that did not get taken care of in time and has now gone into head as well. It's looking beautiful, but definitely should have been cut a while back. And then over on this end is again just more cabbages, another white petunia, and that pretty much wraps up our first first box here. So I'm gonna actually start off on this end of the next box. I popped in some baby's breath that we started from seed, along with some eucalyptus, some zinnias that I had ordered the seeds from Etsy. It said they were like a blushing pink, beautiful muted pink color. Most of them are white, and then there's these couple random pops of like bright pink. So they're definitely not what I ordered, but they still look beautiful here in the garden. Next to that, I have a bunch of chamomile. I absolutely love chamomile flowers. They are edible, but they're also really known for their teas and medicinal values. And so I wanted them to pop on cakes and things throughout the summer, but then also to freeze dry and store up for tea for the winter. We have another eucalyptus here. This I don't really use to eat. I just think that they're beautiful. I love the scent of them, and I thought the scent could also maybe help deter some pests and things. So I think I heard or read somewhere that, wait, cabbages are a big, like considered the large category. So these I put in the middle, but now I think these are actually a smaller variety. They have more frilly leaves. They're more of a purple cabbage. They look beautiful, but that's the difference here. And it looks like I should be picking some green beans. We have a couple of green beans as well as red beet in here. In this box, I still have a couple small heads of lettuce. And then again, we have some parsley. This is, I believe, fennel. It's my first year growing fennel. No, that's definitely dill. Wow, I need to come here and harvest some of that. That's one thing that I've really learned with the intensive gardening. So when I first started gardening, I did in-ground. We had everything in rows. It worked beautifully. That's how I grew up gardening. And then I was hearing all these benefits of raised bed gardening, and we started that, oh goodness, probably 6 years ago now. And I have been loving that. I also love the look of it, but I was still doing everything kind of in groups. So we would have a bed of peppers, and we would have a bed of tomatoes, and we would have a bed of green beans. The intensive gardening is more like what you're seeing, where everything is packed into one bed. So you have a lot of different varieties in one bed. I'm also popping in some flowers for some color, as well as helping detour pests, like I was saying. And there's different benefits of it. I would say the biggest one that I've found this year, as my first year of doing it this way, is how much less weeds there is. So I've hardly had to weed these beds at all, because very quickly any like ground space is covered up. And so that has been super nice, and I have been really, really loving that. But then also different plants, and it's something that I would like to even study more maybe over the winter, but companion planting, how different plants can actually benefit each other. It's all so fascinating to me. But that is what this style is called. And even just for the like aesthetic of it, I just love how it looks. It feels a little bit more like you're walking through a meadow maybe. It's much more like visually interesting to the eye, in my opinion. Zinnias are looking happy, more chamomile here. And then we have some basil, which is such a favorite for pesto, different soups, but basil is just a favorite. I feel like I can never have too much basil. We have some more green beans in here that, yes, definitely need picked. These are red beets. They have holes in the leaves, so something is eating the leaves. I know the leaves are actually edible. Some people would put them in salad greens. I've never actually learned to use them that way, but the actual red beet is usually still fine, even if they get holes. So it's not ideal because it doesn't look as pretty, but it doesn't seem to affect the actual red beet. And so yeah, I haven't paid too much attention to that so far. Beside here, I have a rosemary plant, as well as, this is actually tarragon, which is another new one to me, and a bay leaf plant. I've never actually seen a bay leaf plant, but our greenhouse carried them this year, and I was like, you know what? I put bay leaves in soup, and so it'd be fun to grow one. Next to that, we have more basil. This is a lemongrass. Basically looks like grass, but is actually smells like lemon, and is used to make tea as well. We have another head of lettuce, some more green beans and parsley and dill, and then back to the baby's breath and the zinnias, which actually are cascading over here so beautifully. We'll head right back out there and finish this garden tour. But first, I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, which is Antique Candle Company. Now, you have heard me talk about them multiple times before, and for good reason. We absolutely love burning their candles in our home. If you are new and have not heard of Antique Candle before, basically, they are a US-owned company that produces the most delicious smelling candles candles you have ever smelled in your life, and they are clean. So clean wick, clean wax, clean scents, all of it. You can feel good about burning in your home. And so I have just really been enjoying them now for months in our own home. I have gotten so many compliments on them, and so many of my own personal real life friends also enjoying them. You can order these scents either individually or in subscription boxes, but either way they have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, where if you do not love the scents or anything about your order, you can contact them and they will change it with a new scent. And so they're just super nice to work with that way. But what I'm so excited to tell you about them today is their fall testers have launched. So if you're wondering what that means, basically they really pay attention to comments they get, emails they get, feedback over what scents you guys are loving. And then they take that and create 4 testers. These are the fall testers, and when I tell you these are some of my very favorite candles they've ever come out with, I am not kidding. They have the absolute best scents. But what happens is you can order 1 or 4, which I would recommend for 1, because not all of these will be available possibly ever in the future. Only 1 of these will get selected for their fall candle collection, which I believe launches in September. And so this might be your only chance to get a hold of all 4, plus you get the best price. And give them feedback, and then they take, it's kind of like a vote, which one should be included in the fall line, and the winner of that will be officially launched into the fall collection. So it's just a really fun way that you can actually influence which candle makes it into the actual fall collection. I wish all of these were in that collection. The names of these are, first up, Vanilla Shortbread. As you can see, I've already been enjoying that one. The second one is Maple Pecan Walnut, and this one with Toasted Marshmallow have to be my favorites if I have to pick a favorite. These are both so good. And then there's also Cinnamon Apple Crisp. It literally smells like you just pulled a fresh steaming apple crisp out of the oven. And those are the 4 fall candle testers. They did give me a discount code, this golden hour 20, which gives you 20% off these candles individually, these candles as an entire set. But that code is also good for anything on the website. So if there's some other things that you're eyeing as well, that code should help you out for all of them. I hope you enjoy those, and a huge thank you to Antique Candle Company for sponsoring today's video. Moving over, if you've been around for even a month, you've seen these before. These are my zucchini plants that I was really worried about there for a little bit. They were starting to get the cucumber beetles and were really not looking so good. And so they have been a labor of love. Josh has been treating them, and I need to pull him in at the end of the video to tell you what he's been spraying everything with, because he's my fertilizer guy, stay on top of disease guy. He does so well with it, and works with an agronomist with our fields. That guy also helps different flower growers, produce farmers, things like that. The whole wilty thing went away, and it looks like our zucchinis in there are thriving. So that is so exciting to see. In gardening, you win some, you lose some, you learn something new every single year, but it's always disappointing when you put all that effort into it and then you have something flop. Underneath of these zucchini, I planted some more green beans and some red beets. Now, hardly any of the red beets actually came up. I think we have kind of overkill with already having the zucchini in here. I also planted some flowers in the middle of these. I think some are shooting out of that side. I'll have to see if they're still there. They were too overshaded as well. So I think this box I planted a little bit too intense, but to the end of this, we have some, I always forget what this is, oregano, I think. It's an herb I don't use as much, but ton of that. I shouldn't have planted any more of that because we already have plenty, but that always cascades beautifully over the edges. Oh, and then I almost forgot to show you on this side, this pot didn't do so well. We planted Diamond Frost in here is what this flower is called, and it just has never really taken off. So that was kind of a bummer. I mean, it's fine. It didn't die, but it's not full and lush like it should be. On this side, I have some more zinnias and kind of just continued what I did on that side with the green beans and the red beets and then the herbs on the end. And these, by the way, are herbs I've had here for years. So a lot of herbs will actually overwinter. They're like perennials. So these did, the chives did, and then the chamomile was planted new this year. Okay, the next box, and by the way, you can see how we've staggered sizes. That's just our personal preference. My biggest piece of advice would be that if you are doing garden boxes, to be mindful of the width so that you can reach it from both ends. So I think ours are 4 feet wide, and so the length doesn't really matter. It's the width you want to be mindful of so that you can actually reach the center without climbing into the garden box. And so this one is kind of more of the same. I guess I forgot to mention my cosmos in an earlier box. I planted cosmos in a couple places in the middle. I had so many of those from seed, and so that has been really fun. They add such a like whimsical look to the garden. There are a couple volunteer potato plants in here that came up, and I was like, you know what? Sure, let's go for it. Aside from that, this box has a lot of green beans. This is kind of my main green bean box that is just kind of planted full of them. We also have red beets on the outskirts or like the border of this one. And that's kind of the only things that I planted in this box aside from, and I'll try to bring you around here a little bit more, but we have one watermelon plant coming out the corner here. And it is getting a little bit of wilt, and I'm about to show you a bit of a failure, and we'll talk more about the wilt then. Behind me here, our sunflowers are just starting to bloom. So we actually did not plant any sunflowers this year, but these little guys came popping through our landscape fabric is underneath these rocks and started to grow. And I was like, you know what? Let's go with it. It adds such a beautiful little pop of color. I feel like right here, my daughter went and put these pepper cages around them so that they wouldn't topple over in the wind. We've been having some crazy storms this year. And then next to that is my oldest daughter's pansy box. Now, this was a passion of the 2 oldest girls. They wanted their garden boxes, which we have these little square boxes that now for a couple years, each of the kids has had their own garden box. They love planning their boxes, and they tend to their boxes, aside from the youngest. I'll show you hers here in a little bit. I help her with that some, but they water them, they harvest, they weed, all the things. And so that has just been a beautiful project. And a lot of these are what we started from seed. And I also had filmed that a couple months ago now. So these are just beautiful. I love coming out here. They love using them in cooking as well. They're really getting into that. This is my son's pepper box. Now, my brother makes a lot of his own pepper powders, grows tons of peppers, has made his own hot sauces. And so Hudson this year was like, I want to be like Uncle Ty. I'm going to do all peppers. And so that's what he has here. And I actually still need to get him some pepper cages to stake them up so that they don't topple over like that. If you haven't seen the layout of our garden before, I'm kind of taking you in a circle here. And so this is the one end of the garden. And this year we just planted a bunch of potatoes in here. This space kind of varies. So it's in ground, and we do prefer planting our potatoes in ground versus in boxes. And so I have a bunch of those. My first time also trying some sweet potatoes, and we have those tucked in the corner over there as well. And then behind that is a row of raspberries. They usually bear twice a year for us. And it's currently just finishing its first kind of flush of berries. And then it actually usually bears again in the fall. Moving on around this side, this is my second oldest daughter's box. She again planted a lot of flowers in there. She also has a lot of the pansies, like my oldest daughter, and then also some petunias here on the end that she picked out at the greenhouse. We have another one of the zinnias in here. I'm trying to remember what this is. I do not remember. We'll have to wait to see that one till it blooms. Okay, on the end here is my youngest daughter, my barely 4-year-old's box, and she just kind of planted whatever for flowers. So hers isn't quite as curated as the other kids, but that is totally fine. I went to the greenhouse one day and picked out some different herbs and flowers to plant in my boxes, and she saw these marigolds and she's like, can I have those in my garden box? So I said, sure, go for it. And so she planted those in here, as well as a little Gerbera daisy. We have an nasturtium in here, and then this I think is a spaghetti squash that I just popped in the corner of her box. I've been really loving planting all the big viney things on the corner of boxes. For one, it looks nice that it fills in, but we've been having some trouble with grass and weeds growing up through the landscape fabric, through the rocks, and just being a real pain to pick. And this area specifically was just covered in them this spring and was just a real pain to try to get on top of. And so I feel like this kind of also helps shade it out. Now, one thing, as I'm sure you're eyeing, is we have a massive pumpkin plant here. Two of them. You actually can't see the second one. 2-3 days ago, maybe. The first one just kind of flopped on me. It was beautiful. It was like this, like just vibrant and beautiful, and suddenly it flopped. Now that's very typical with cucumber beetles. That's what I was expecting my zucchini to do. It came back, thankfully. I'll show you the cucumbers in a little bit, how they're doing, but these just kind of flopped, and I haven't really found bugs on them or anything like that. And so I think Josh is going to talk to the agronomist about that. The other thing is they're not dead. Like I'll come out here sometimes and they're perked up and I'm like, oh wow, it's reviving, praise the Lord. And then later though, it looks very limp like this again. So I'm not sure what's going on. Just today I saw that the second one had done it. And so that's very disappointing. Like I said before, you put all that effort into it and it's so exciting to see things grow and looking beautiful. But things like this just happen, and it's part of gardening, and you just have to go with it, learn what you can, try again next year. In this box, so this is actually my strawberry box. And so I thought, you know what? I hope you can hear these birds. They are magical. Normally, after the season, it just gets a lot of weeds and grass, and so I thought this year I would try to stay on top of it by planting beans in over them, and so that's kind of the experiment here. And then of course the pumpkin trailed over here as well and is now wilting. A little bit of a mess. I think I'll give it a couple more days, maybe up to a week, and see if it comes back, even see what the agronomist says, and then we'll just take it from there. Might have to pull the thing, but then I guess on the positive side, the green beans will have their space to shine then. So we'll see a little bit how that turns out yet. Okay, we might have to be a little bit creative with our camera angles because the sun is setting right back here. Hopefully it's not too dark. This box is also the second pumpkin that wilted on me. But here we have a couple of cucumbers, and I think I'll talk about the cucumbers more in the boxes next to me here because this box just isn't too much to see. I planted a bunch of carrots in this box as well, and I just felt like that's one thing I wanted a lot of yet, and so I thought this one I'll just plant really full of carrots. However, not many of them came up, and I think it's because I planted them too much in the mushroom soil. So I like to plant things after putting the mushroom soil on. However, when it's little seeds like that, I think they struggle a little bit more. So my plan is to just kind of rough this up, make sure it's mixed in well with the dirt, and then reseed the carrots. There's a couple of them coming up here and there, but I want a lot more than that. Over on this end, we have some eggplant, which was supposed to help with cucumber beetles. And then also onions. Again, it was supposed to detour pests. And some of you know my cucumber story. Now, this next box has been one of my very favorite ones since the very beginning. We started off by planting these cosmos in the middle. It was so exciting to have that first little step of this new kind of way of gardening. I was very excited to try it, and then I just filled it in to my heart's content. We planted green beans all around. They've been doing beautifully. A lot of different herbs. I went with some different color variations: purple basil, normal basil, or regular green basil. We have some curly parsley, more basil. I guess it's my basil box. And then of course the petunia over on the end. Over here we have some thyme, another basil plant, and then I planted the onions here again to try to detour the cucumber beetles, which I've had so much trouble with in the past. And these have been such a labor of love. Definitely made it onto my prayer list as well. I so badly wanted to can pickles this year, and I just have had so much trouble actually getting cucumbers to grow well for me. They just keep getting attacked by cucumber beetles, and so I thought they were dying. You can see some really bad leaves on here still. That's what the whole plant looked like, but thankfully we now have a lot of beautiful new growth, and so I'm carefully optimistic that we might still get our crop in this year. But again, once we're done with the tour, I do want to swing by Josh and see if he can give you the name of what he's been spraying them, because he's been spraying them sometimes twice a day with this, and it's a mixture that our agronomist suggested, and even the agronomist said, and you know what, there's one that's actually time to pick. That is so exciting. These are supposed to be like the little like gherkin pickles, that size. That's what I love for pickling. Anyways, and so these have been definitely something that I come check in pretty much every single day, sometimes a couple times a day, and just see how they're doing. I was picking off any beetles I could find. I found that they would often hide under the leaves or inside of the flowers. And so I had already planted a nasturtium here, which does not look super great. It's definitely gotten eaten, and that's actually the whole point of planting a nasturtium, is to attract the bugs to it so that it leaves your other plants alone. Obviously didn't entirely work because we've definitely had some issues with the cucumbers. So that's really exciting, but I guess stay tuned if we end up having a big cucumber pickling day. That would be so exciting. On this side, I just continued on with my herbs, curly parsley, more chives, more dill, more basil, more parsley, and then more basil still. On the end, I think it kind of got overgrown here. I did plant some celery over here. Yep, it's still there. There's some celery, some more chives, and then there's actually another petunia over on this end. So this has been a really fun one. Weeds definitely don't stand a chance when it's this full. The difference I feel like is when you plant this full with just one variety, you can have a little more trouble with disease, and this way they kind of balance each other out to where it's supposed to be less likely that you have trouble with that. And so far, I would say they've been doing well, aside from, of course, the cucumber issue. Okay, this box is another one similar. It's quite packed full. I love it. So fun. Again, we have cucumbers, and these we just kind of literally planted a whole row of there and have been clipping them up to these trellises. These trellises, by the way, Josh and my dad built. I know I've got questions of that before. They did a beautiful job. Love how those have turned out. And then just more herbs along the sides. I don't know how in-depth you want each box, but more parsley, chamomile, chives, dill, cilantro that is starting to head on me. And then this giant one here is fennel, and so that has been a new one, and clearly one that I've not quite been keeping up with. A big thing with intensive gardening like this, if I didn't mention it yet, is that you need to harvest pretty much daily and just kind of stay on top of what needs picked, or else it can get a little bit jungle-like this fennel. Okay, in the center here we have two more zucchini plants, and these, again, I've had a little bit of wilt with, couple leaves, but the whole plant isn't flopping, at least not yet, and so I'm just hanging on and hoping that we actually get the fruit from it that we are looking for. They do have little zucchinis growing on them. I should say that one. This one I haven't seen any wilt on yet, so hoping we can figure all of that out here before anything actually dies on me. But at the same time, just you have to see the losses, but also the wins and all the fruit and veggies we've already gotten from the garden this year, and also focus on those things. We have some more chamomile here. Again, something I should harvest more of. We have some more petunias here, and then there are also some carrots randomly scattered. Oh, found a chicken egg. Here's another new herb that I planted, new to me I should say, this year, and I can't remember what it is, so I'm gonna have to look it up and see if I can find a name for it and how to use it. Next to that, we have some more oregano. Okay, this is right where we're seeing the sunset, so this is actually a really beautiful place to look in real life, but maybe a little bit frustrating when you're just seeing it on the screen. These are cherry tomatoes, and we actually have some fun little clusters coming here. I thought these were all dead. A couple weeks ago, we had a big storm roll in, and this whole entire arch dumped over, pulling with it my cherry tomatoes. So this half is quite sparse, but I tied up what I could with what we had here, and I think we'll still get some good fruit from it, and then Josh secured my arch. And so that's always fun to add to pastas or salads or whatever. And then I have the same thing over on this side of the trellis, also cherry tomatoes growing up there. And then this is one of my tomato boxes. So I did still go ahead and plant them kind of in boxes, but just adding more things around the border. Planted some onions in there, again, to help with some pests, and then a lot of herbs and flowers around the ends of that one as well. Tomatoes is something that next year I'm hoping to plant again from seed. These are all ones that I picked up as small starts from our greenhouse locally. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. I planted 9 regular sized tomato plants, and then we also have the cherry tomatoes on that side. And then again, like I said, pretty similar herbs to what you've been seeing everywhere else so far, except this box also has a marigold plant, which is supposed to help pests as well. And then the onions, I was thinking, might be helpful as well with their strong scent. Okay, and then I forgot to mention on the end, I do have more watermelons coming out of this one. So this is my onion box. So these onion boxes I had planted before I decided to do the intensive gardening method. And so I thought later, oh, onions are so good with like repelling pests and whatever, let's plant tomatoes in here. So I actually popped 6, 7 tomato plants in here. And they look fine, but they're significantly smaller than the ones in this box. And so I'm kind of holding my breath and waiting to see if they will kind of shoot up, because I think the problem here was the onions were already pretty big until I planted the tomatoes. And so we'll see a little bit how those turn out. That's all that's in this box, is just the onions and the tomatoes. The onions, I know so many of you loved hearing my mom's advice on growing onions a couple videos back. And I'm so excited to see the size of these. We're getting massive sizes. The other box that I'll show you here soon, I did not get to uncovering the bulb, and I do feel like these definitely look bigger. So I would say take her advice. I still might uncover them. We usually try to have our onions pulled by August, and so sometime before the end of the month I need to pull these and hang them to dry and all of that, but they still have a little bit of time to go, so I might try to get the dirt uncovered there just to give them their best chance. But yeah, we'll see. These tomatoes look healthy, I would say, but they're just a lot smaller, so we'll see how they actually shape up here with time. And then we've reached the other end of the garden, and a lot of you might already know these are another passion project of mine. Dahlia is something that we like to grow every year. I used to sell to wedding florists. I haven't done that the last couple of years. Sometimes consider it, and then I'm like, no, I think I have enough on my plate. But we also just love gifting them, picking them ourselves, using them in bouquets. I've done a couple of events with them, and so it's just been a really fun little project of ours. Josh and I kind of plant them together, but I love cutting them, deadheading them, tying them up, things like that. Josh makes my rows, which they do need to be trellised up here before our next storm, or they could blow over. That's something really important with dahlias. But then same as with the garden, he loves like the health side of the plants and figuring out their nutrition and all of that. And so we work together really well in that and loving the different parts of it. These are just coming into bloom. These are my favorite cafe au lait, and they will come in a little bit of different shades. Some of them are a little more pink, some of them are a little bit more cream colored. And then of course we just have some more. Some of them are just coming. Back here, I think this is maybe coral bronze. But this year we have 5 rows of the dahlias, and it's always such a joy to come walk these aisles, pick flowers with the girls or with friends or whatever and have fun. On the back side here we have, I think, 3 more rows of potatoes. So we eat a lot of potatoes in our family, and so that seemed like a good place to plant more of those. My camera battery is dying, so I need to pick up the pace here. Another box of onions. Like I said, planted our onions before we decided to do the intensive gardening. Like next year I'd like to kind of spread them in around more things, except I popped in a petunia plant that is loving it right here. This box, this was a bunch of lettuces here, and so those are pulled now. We have some more dill, basil, planted a couple of celeries here, more dill and basil. And then more peppers in the middle. We love making a lot of salsa, a lot of canned peppers, sometimes pepper powders. And so we use quite a bit of peppers. And then I did pop in a couple of random like onions that I transplanted from the other boxes to see how that would go. We have a bunch of kale. This one looks like it's starting to just get old. And then another petunia here, and then chives, more kale, more cabbage, more kale, and so it continues, kind of just more of what you've already seen. Now you've probably seen in a couple of the B-roll clips that we have hydrangeas, so we planted a hedge of hydrangeas at the front of our garden to kind of border it. Those are just blooming, starting their bloom for the season, which is super fun. And then our sweet corn is actually right behind me. I don't know if you can quite see that. There's the tall corn, that's field corn, and then there's much shorter corn, that's the sweet corn. And we like to do our corn with another family, friends of ours. And so we have, I think, 4 rows of that this year. We don't plant them the same time as the field corn because if you do, they'll pollinate each other and you'll get hard sweet corn. And so that is not tasty for anyone. So the sweet corn is significantly smaller right now. We were actually just working on weeding that today. It was in dire need, but it is also just a fun family project to grow that big patch of sweet corn. So hang on. I was about to say goodbye, but I need to ask Josh about these things he sprays on. So let me see if I can find him quick. I know he's gonna say, I'm not fit to be on camera because he's still in barn clothes. Help me convince him to come out anyway. Unfortunately, most of what he uses is from our agronomist, who mixes up his own like recipes, if you will, of these different, what do you call it, products, I guess, that he sprays on. Basically, there's not a lot of products that we can show you because we work so closely with our agronomist, who also helps with all of our fields and things. But there were 2 things that Josh said maybe you'd be able to find in like a greenhouse, or I don't know if online. What are these called?
So the first one we use for the tomatoes, it's a liquid calcium product called CalStore. It helps a lot to prevent the I forget the name of it, but basically the tomatoes, if they don't have enough calcium, they get a big brown spot on one side of the tomato just as they begin to ripen, and completely makes the tomato useless if that's the case. But we've seen over and over again this will correct that. So if you start having tomatoes that come in like that, put some of this on and it should fix the problem with the next tomatoes that become ripe. And then this is a, well, they call it bug beater juice. It may be a little difficult to find. It's something that we found at a greenhouse locally, but I couldn't find it online. Found it to be very helpful for potato bugs. So just it can also be used as a liquid fertilizer just to apply on top of your vegetables in the garden as well. It's an organic product as well.
So on top of these, he sprays them with like 8 different things.
Yeah.
I think, and those are the products that we can't tell you where to find or even names necessarily, because they are like custom mixed by our agronomist. But some of the things that they would help with is like healthy roots, right? Guarding against pests. What are some other like general?
Yeah, so the one is like an oil-based product to help with bugs as well. Different types of targeted products. The one is magnesium type of product, and yeah, it's kind of hard to explain it all.
Yeah, basically trying to just keep the whole of the plant as healthy as possible to prevent against disease, pests, that kind of thing. So anyways, that wraps up our garden tour. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, friends.
Golden, golden thing.